The Unearthed attraction will be a self-guided tour underground, complete with hard hats and flashlights. The painstaking process of creating Unearthed involved 18 months of planning, developing, and collaborating with individuals and other parks. Knowlton and Cowie met and began creating Howl Scream's newest attraction, Unearthed, in a real haunted house.
We got together, we went out to Florida, and we actually stayed in a haunted house, like a real haunted house that had registered paranormal experiences in St. Augustine. It was called Casablanca. What was a really great kickoff to this event was staying in this haunted house that night with all of the masterminds in the company that do Halloween, and sitting on the front porch of this haunted house all night long telling stories. It was raining, right? Yeah. And it was that day that we actually met Robin here. And so for those of you that don't know, Robin was a producer of the Blair Witch Project, and he is absolutely a storytelling mastermind. As we found out that dark and rainy night, we were also very grateful that he was willing to join the team this year to help us weave the story of Unearthed. And Unearthed is our new haunted house this year, and it's really fantastic. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be the scariest thing we've ever done, and absolutely the most authentic thing that we've ever done. And the story, I think, is absolutely, it's very rich, and it's very terrifying.
Cowie talked about the process of conceptualizing Unearthed.
For me, it always starts with kind of what scares the hell out of me. And I've just got phobias about being underground and in caves or under the water, or anything down deep is scary to me. And really the basic idea was, what happens when something is buried under a theme park? And from that kind of basic premise, that something was buried beneath this theme park, started this journey to figure out, well, what is buried under the ground, and what happens when you dig it up, and why was it put there in the first place? And kind of this whole story evolved out of that.
Cowie and Knowlton explained what to expect in Scarlett's house.
We definitely wanted it to be very visceral, and I guarantee you will jump. There's going to be demons coming at you from left and right. And sure.
And you're a little trapped. I mean, when you talk about being underground, like you are underground and you're trapped in this house.
Yeah, it's
if that's a phobia.
I'm my own worst enemy. I am not going to be happy going through the actual thing. So
they believe their partnership has developed a unique experience.
You know, I've been able to bring some of my film guys that I've worked with over the years, you know, into this whole experience. So, like, the cinematographer is a guy named John Rutland, who's doing the new Paranormal Activity movie that's coming out. The production designer who helped, you know, design a lot of the elements of the sets, you know, he just did Goosebumps that's coming out. So we were able to bring, like, really top list people into creating these environments. So, and
now this is interesting. So you talk about sets because you do films and you
right.
have sets, but this is different because you're creating
completely different.
You're creating a set that people are going to walk through. So people, it's almost like they get to be in the film,
right?
Because they're walking into the set themselves.
Well, I mean, you know, so there's so much detail that has to go into the house that normally, you know, okay, we're gonna look at this. That's what it's gonna be, and now it's all the way around you. But you also do get, like, you know, this certainly the sound environments and the smells and the, you know, the physicality of it was really, really great.
Cowie described the background of Scarlett, the main character in Unearthed.
So I always like these really strong female characters, and Scarlett is really she's a tortured soul. Her husband was murdered by the town. She was a healer. She was really a good person, but unfortunately the town turned on her and her husband and killed her husband. And at that point, that turned her to the dark arts, and she started really messing things up. And then they decided to bury her in her house, in below the ground. And now she's coming back for revenge.
The style behind Unearthed is a combination of human emotion and the supernatural.
Scarlett's fury is pretty primal. Scarlett has these abilities to use casting cards and to bring things back using these demon cards. So we were able to bring some other demons into the story through her casting cards.
And
so
these will be available at the event.
Yeah.
To play with.
So
these casting cards?
I interviewed Cowie and found out how Scarlett's character formed.
So we came up with the idea that there was something buried underneath the park, and it had to be dug up. So we decided, well, we want it to be 200 years old, and we started doing a bunch of research as to like who was actually in these areas in 200 years, 200 years ago. What would they be involved in? And there really was this proliferation of healers. Who would use very strange techniques in order to heal people. And then that kind of led us to necromancy. And once we got onto necromancy, Scarlett started to bubble up because, what would make a good person go bad? And then there's no other better thing for a good person to go bad than love. And once her husband was killed, it kind of took off from there.
Scarlett raises hell with her abilities.
Yeah, so when we were researching necromancy, a lot of the things that people would use is obviously, various different potions and that type of thing. But one thing that we found very interesting was these cards that would be used for divination and all kinds of things like that. So we were like, okay, we can create our own cards. And Scarlett uses casting cards to summon demons from the past. So on these cards, we have a lot of the demons that have been involved in Howl-O-Scream in the years before and in other parks. And so when she uses these casting cards, those demons, of course, create extra havoc.
He told me about who he worked with to develop Unearthed.
So I worked with a lot of people that I've done a lot of movies with. A guy named Ben Rock that actually worked with me on Blair Witch. A guy named Jamie Nash who's written a bunch of movies that I've produced. One that I did here in Texas a couple of years back. And then I worked with concept artist in LA who's really phenomenal. So the cinematographer I was able to use, his name's John Rutland. He's doing the new Paranormal Activity movie. So really people that I've worked with in the film industry for many, many, many years, I was able to bring them into the whole world in creating all of these different aspects of the film. Yeah, so the great thing about Scarlett is, she does have this very dark life 200 years ago, but she comes back to life. And so the archaeologists that set out to bring her back to life, there's a whole story that if you go to howloscream.com, you can get to that story and follow, because there's a whole contemporary story about the people who are digging her up at Aura, which is the archaeology company, who basically go crazy. So, of course, we have a contemporary crazy story mixed with the dark roots to go with it.
I asked Cowie how he got into horror.
Oh, man. Horror's been part of my life for so long. I got really sick when I was like 12 and started reading Stephen King books, and I think once I started on Stephen King, that kind of pretty much messed me up for the rest of my life. Thank you, Mr. King.